So we have a couple of new people to the call. I think Patrick and Leslie. So maybe if each of you would like to introduce yourself and say a bit about why you're here and what the LGBT community, how you relate to the community. Leslie, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. I've lived in Bergen County, I guess, for 20 something years. And I'm just glad that Bergen County is starting to have more activities and support for, gay women, queer women, whatever, So I just wanted to see what was going on.
Great. Well, welcome, Leslie.
Thank you.
Patrick.
Hi, everyone. Patrick, I've lived in Bergen County most of my life, this is like 50 years. I came out as a lesbian in 2006, but then I came out as trans last year, and I've been transitioning, trans man, non-binary. And I saw this email from Anthony. We met actually, a friend of mine and I met Anthony in Ramsey, New Jersey when they did their Pride event last year, and we connected with Anthony. Then that's how I got this email tonight and saw that it was on you're focusing on the transgender issues, and that gives me high anxiety because I keep seeing all the bills like everyone else, and I'm like, I waited 50 years to transition, and these people are more than ever attacking. So I'm trying to stay active. I've been active actually in the LGBTQ space. I didn't come out till later, but I did fight for marriage equality in 2014, speaking with Holly Shapizi and other people, so that we get marriage equality. And I guess I have to keep fighting for something, in this for our community. So that's why I'm here.
Well, welcome, and particularly well timed, as you say, this evening. So yeah. Great to have you. Just quickly running through some of the events, the list. We have the next Threads event on March the 11th. For people who are not familiar with Threads, that's our event run by Jess Haran, who is our youth coordinator, to provide clothing, particularly for non-binary and transgender kids, so that they can get access to clothes which more fit their self-image. And we know a lot of younger non-binary and transgender kids have difficulty with that. And so that's, really grown as a program. We're very happy about that. That's at Cresskill Church, which is the same place that they hold Rainbow Cafe. And that's a week on Saturday, March the 11th. So people are certainly welcome to go along to that. And if you've got clothes that you think might be appropriate for that, just drop me or anybody else an email. I'm Nick at BergenCountyLGBTQ.com, and we can arrange for pickup of clothes. All the usual kind of monthly events are ongoing, all the senior stuff. We have the Marsha P. Johnson's social event for the transgender community, which again is a monthly meetup, and that's on the 4th Wednesday of the month in person at Central Unitarian Church on Forest Avenue in Paramus. And we're delighted that we now have both a women's group and a men's group started. Does anybody want to talk about the women's group? The first outing of which was on this Monday. I know, Diane, you weren't able to make it because of the weather. Adriana, anybody else? I think, Leslie, you said you were there too. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that meeting
I didn't
was?
go. Yeah, I didn't go because I thought there wouldn't be many people there, I guess, because of the weather, and didn't want to rush out of work, for nothing. So, but I'm looking forward to the next one. Yeah.
I think there were 23 people. Judith, you're on. You were there too, right?
Yeah, we had 22, 23 people total, including myself and Wanda. It was a great event. We stayed in one room, the youth and the those older than me. So and good discussion. There's a lot of topics came out of it. Wanda wrote up some many notes of things that need to happen. Women going out by themselves and still being date raped, and the youth wanting to more than GSA in the high schools because the teachers they're not doing anything. Despite all these bullying rules, there's still a lot of bullying going on. So those are a couple of the major topics that hopefully we can move forward and do something about.
Yeah. One of the things we were saying to Wanda at the board meeting last night was we need to figure out how to make sure those initiatives are synced with the stuff, for instance, we're doing at the moment with GSAs, with schools, all that kind of stuff. But we can have conversations offline about ensuring that is happening.
Mm-hmm. I let a couple people know I'm working on a document to be an available driver for the youth who maybe need to get to Threads or want to go to Rainbow Cafe, or maybe we're looking to maybe do a Rainbow Cafe in Fairlawn area, but people who don't have rides to and from places and some of these events. So I know I was working with Anthony. I need to write up a document, make a rides available. And along with that, I think maybe we have some kind of a helpline available so people, when they're in a situation, they can reach out and call somebody to help give immediate support. And just, like call a friend.
Right. We could, that was something I know we talked about at one of the seniors meetings recently. Diane and Sherry, I think you were there. One of the things we do have to think quite carefully about is how we would staff that in a way that is sustainable, with just a group of volunteers as we are now.
Mm-hmm.
But we can have a conversation about that offline. Anything, Adriana, I think you were there too, right, as a women's group?
Hi, sorry. Yes, I was there.
Is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I think it was a great group. I think it was a good turnout. It definitely highlighted a lot of different issues within, various levels. We did talk a lot about, what was going on in some schools for the youths and their experiences, and kind of just, it was a nice collaborative experience, I would say, of everyone working together to try to problem solve and see how we can, take more action in the community.
Right.
Was there another meeting date set?
Yeah, I was going to ask exactly that, Diane. When the next meeting is.
At this time, I'm not sure we have another meeting date, but we are looking to hold this at least monthly, if not maybe something more often, because of the discussions that came out. There'll probably be some smaller sideline meetings for groups, and then we want to move forward. A few people also expressed interest in more activities and getting together, like this, as well as game nights or outings, as well as this Sierra Hike Club. So we'll be looking to put that together in this spring to have more ideas come through. So yeah, I would say at least monthly, we're looking to hold the women's group.
Judith, this is Leslie, you know me. But anyway, I have a question. The Sierra Club, right? Do they have their own LGBT group, or is this something new?
The Sierra Club had an LGBT group, and I guess it kind of fell by the wayside or something. So we're revising it and giving it new life. So
Okay.
it is a Northern New Jersey LGBTQ group that Wanda and I are working with others in Sierra to run and lead some hikes.
Good, that's great.
Just to be clear, the way the Sierra Club, I'm the chair of the North Jersey group. The way the Sierra Club works, you have a state chapter, and then under the state chapter, different regions in the state have groups, they call them groups, which are their grassroots arms of the state chapter. And we're in Bergen and Passaic have a group, and that's the North Jersey group. And then the state itself also has things called sections, which are not as formal as the groups are. And they're themed oriented. So there's a senior section and there's an LGBTQ plus section that's statewide. So we focused because Wanda is the chair of the outings for the section. And I'm the chair for the section itself. And the way the section is looking right now, we've done most of our stuff focused up in Bergen and Passaic, primarily because that's where we are. Eventually, we hope to be able to grow this so that we're doing more LGBTQ plus hikes all over the place in the state, and maybe even beyond that, because it is a statewide section as opposed to the group, which is more Bergen Passaic. So just to distinguish, you don't have to be a member of Sierra Club to attend any of the hikes, but it would be helpful for us if you were, only because it shows strength to the state. And, it shows them that we're a viable presence, which is something that the section has not been for the last several years. So we're really trying to get it going. So anyway, thank you for listening to that.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay,
you, Diane.
let's move on with BCLA stuff. So we also now have a men's group, which is for LGBT men, including, transgender men. It started last Friday at the Ethical Culture Society, and we had a pretty good turnout. I think the focus, certainly so far, is more on building community, particularly amongst a lot of gay men who've lost partners through HIV, which is a big theme, plus a lot of people who are coming to it who have dependence issues. So that's certainly the focus so far, and we will continue to build that sort of on a monthly basis. So if anybody's interested in that, again, let me know, but we're putting a flyer on the website for that with all details on it. Also coming up, we're going to have a May youth event again, probably with PSE&G as last year. We have a youth summit coming up, and we're also actively now working on the summer program, which is going to be a sort of day camp for 10 weekdays during the summer. We have all the funding in place for that, and we have a pretty active program that Jess and I are working on. And the focus of that is very much going to be our homeless youth, together with a number of LGBT youth from sort of, less privileged backgrounds. So we're working on building up the kids for that too. So there'll be plenty more details on that to come. That was probably going to be the end of July and the whole of August. Any questions on any of that before we move on? So, as I think people are aware, this month, what we wanted to do was talk a little bit about what the transgender community needs from BCLA, and those of us who consider ourselves allies to the transgender community. Sydney, the floor is yours. What I think we want to do from this, if we can, is come out with some clear kind of action items that we can action locally. We're all, of course, aware of all the horrible legislation elsewhere in the country. The Tennessee legislation particularly is horrific. But what we're really focused on here, I think, is what we can do locally to make a difference and help. Sydney, you're part of the community. Patrick, you're part of the community. Others who are part of that community. So the floor is yours, Sydney. Did Sydney freeze? What happened? Built her up and now nothing. There you are.
Okay. Yeah, I'm having some internet issues here, so I apologize. I'm actually in Tennessee.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah, I'm in Tennessee. Yes, I'm in East Tennessee right now. So yeah, it's pretty bad politically down here. It's we moved down here in November, and of course we didn't know this was going to happen then. There is a large community here. There's a large transgender community here, and actually, it's probably larger percentage-wise than Bergen County, which is and there's a Pride Center and everything else. And I think the mental health of especially the trans community across the country. I mean, so many bills, much we got a slate of hate. That's what it's being called. Is so bad. I mean, the local people here, no problem. It's not them. They're very friendly, very accepting. It's an issue with local people. The problem is state government. This part of the country, only 40% of the people vote. That's part of the problem. Get more people to vote. And I mean, kind of a blue bubble in the state too. I'm out where I live. It's out in the country a little bit, but we're 20 minutes from Knoxville, which is very, very blue area in Oak Ridge. So, which I don't know if anyone knows what Oak Ridge is famous for. Is famous for the Manhattan Project, in case anyone wants to know. But going back to needed, one of being having a Pride itself. Here there is a Pride Center, and right next door a cafe shop. It's run by a trans woman. And it's very helpful in having that community and people having good.
Maybe if she took her video off, we could hear, the sound would be better.
Okay. You can hear me better
A
now?
nice picture.
Sydney, keep talking and see how we get on.
I think you have a hard time hearing me. I'm going to switch to my modem. So
Okay.
I'm going to connect right back on another machine. So I'll be right
Okay.
back. Right.
Well, while you're doing that, anybody else on the call? Patrick, I know Valerie's on. Vicky, you may well have thoughts on this. Are there any other immediate thoughts that you've got in terms of what you think is needed in Bergen County for this part of the community?
I was actually thinking of calling my representative. I don't know if everyone else has the same representative, or she's senator now, Holly Schepisi, and just seeing where she stands, because I know there are a few bills right now in New Jersey from, I guess his name is Doer, and there's a few others there who have put out bills that are anti-trans, and just see where Schepisi is on this, and let them know that we're here, because I think there's a lot of ignorance also, of course, then the opposition will put like misinformation out there, scaring everyone about trans folks, as if we're freaks or whatever, but we're just human beings. And I find that, I go on social media and I see posts by, trans people who are like celebrities, whatever. And then I look at the comments and I'm like, they're so like ignorant. They're not educated or whatever. And then there's a lot of hate thrown because of that miseducation or whatever, that ignorance. And it's like, I don't know what to do other than speaking to politicians. I've asked also other people who are activists. They've said like, if there's like bills being introduced like or things being introduced like in schools, banning books, whatever, go to those meetings, the Board of Education meetings. They say, go to your local whatever meeting and make your voice heard, basically, is what they say, rather than being quiet and that sort of a thing and letting someone else do the work. I think we have to actually like do the work, like be in the fight. And I know it can be scary, but if we all like know that there's other people, in the community, that we're all together in this all together, they think it's less scary, because I think the opposition wants to keep us in fear so that we don't act, that's typical. So,
To what extent, Patrick, are you kind of plugged into those Board of Education meetings and other things that are happening? Because I think we see some of that and we're looking for that. So, for instance, there was something recently quite close to you, Frank, that I know that Ramsey Pride, I think, got involved with, where a Board of Education was trying to prevent, and this wasn't transgender specifically, they were trying to prevent having rainbows in the middle school. And there was again a Board of Education meeting, and some of us kind of got involved in that. Part of it, I think, is also getting advance notice so that we can try and pull together a group of people who might be available to go. And we try and get as much of that as possible, although we tend to be more plugged into some GSAs than others. We're probably plugged into about like 29 to 30 in the county. Do you have other kind of access to that information in any way, or do you know people who do?
are you talking to me or were you asking?
Yeah,
Frank?
about
Oh.
whether you or anybody else on the call knows about those upcoming Board of Education kind of discussions.
I don't know personally. I mean, I'm not part of Ramsey Town. I'm in the next town over.
I'm just
So,
thinking more
yeah.
generally in the county, not specifically to Ramsey. That was just an example.
Yeah, no, I just asked someone who's an activist and they said, go to those local meetings because the fight is, starts locally. I know there's big stuff on the federal level, but if we win, if we fight locally, then, we make some headway. That's why I mentioned it.
It's sometimes just finding out about them and finding
Yeah.
out about them far enough in advance.
Yeah, I actually belong to a trans support group. It's part of Robert Wood Johnson. So I see that I'm in their Facebook group. So they do sometimes tell us about, I forgot which town it was. There was something recently that they asked people to show up. So that's where I might hear of something in other, groups that are statewide actually too.
Right. Well, I mean, if you or anybody else does hear about that, let us know. Because then at least we can try and build a few people together to get them out to something, right?
Yeah.
Nick, I just came from this other call with the LGBTQ advisory committee, right, for Bergen
How was
County.
that?
It was good. It was good. But one of the topics that came up, we were talking about the bullying in school of LGBTQ students. And one of the things they said that we can pursue, and we will try to pursue this with them, was to meet with the Bergen County Superintendent of Schools. And although the superintendent does not have the power to, they can't force local boards to do this or that, they certainly have influence. And also, there is a state Department of Education, which sets curriculum standards. And one thing that they recently are pushing or passed in the New Jersey State Legislature is making media literacy a required component of New Jersey public education. And part of that literacy is fighting against misinformation. And so, there is a connection here between things that are happening at the state level that are worth looking into. And we're going to try and set up some kind of meeting with that superintendent, and we can bring this as part of that conversation.
That's great. Yeah, we will definitely pursue that and arrange that meeting.
What about going after the towns that certify themselves as stigma-free and literally getting their certification shot down and making it a news story? Clearly, bullying in their schools on this regards makes them stigmatized. They have a problem that they don't address.
Do you have any particular school districts in mind, Valerie, in relation to that?
Pick anyone in Bergen County. I got 15 kids that will say the same, and I know you do too.
We certainly have some kids who have suffered through the schools that they're in. That is correct, yes. Sydney.
See, honestly, I don't think we're going to get traction unless we can hurt them. And I mean that in a entirely non-violent way. I mean, unless you can light a fire under the superintendent and literally force him to move, I think it's going to be one of those situations where they say, yeah, we appreciate what you're saying, but there's nothing we can do.
Mm.
And I'm tired of that.
Well,
I may be on a level tonight. I may be really upset because I've had a really frustrating, hard week, and my ex just blew up at me. But like, we're not getting the traction that the hate groups are
Mm.
because we're not fighting dirty. We're not stealing the false accomplishments from these towns. We're not forcing them to stop what they're doing and start doing it right. And I don't know how to do that. And I wish I did. I wish I had a better answer than me literally going to another county, working my ass off, trying to build a business so I can get enough money to force these politicians out. Because I've got a dozen friends down here doing the same.
Mm.
We want the politicians who aren't doing our thing out. And the only answer I have for that is money. And unfortunately, that's our society. Because that's what's forcing things down in Tennessee. That's what's forcing things all over the place. Hate groups get tons of money, whereas the pro-LGBT groups are starving. We barely have enough to, limp on. We can't fund our groups that help people because we're getting hit too hard. It makes them so much to hate on us. And it's all smokescreen BS. It's just that they put 1,000 transgender bills just to enrage their base, just so they'd have something to talk about. So they don't have to talk about how they're blowing up their entire world. They don't have to talk about how we're going to be underwater in 100 years. Because that's the issues of the day. So it's just deflect, steal their money to the point where they can't do anything anyway. And that's literally the abuse that's happening over and over and over again. Because it's profitable to them. Because
Valerie,
it's profitable for these towns to say, I'm stigma free. We did the right thing. It's not us, it's them. It's not the person on the street, it's our politicians.
I hear you, and I hear the justified anger and passion, and nobody disagrees with anything you're saying. The issue is going to be how we actually, can really make a difference and try and make some sort of, short to medium term difference.
I think Valerie makes a very valid point, but in part what's happens is that, I worked for a school district for years, so I'm coming from that perspective. And the people who go to the board meetings tend to be much more vocal about what they don't like in the curriculum, meaning anything that you put in about trans, for instance, they don't want to see it. The people who go to make noise are those people who are against us, or people like us. We don't have a lot of people, we don't have the same number of people being a strong voice, going to the PPOs, going to, and getting large numbers of people to go to advocate for something for us. We just have a lot of people advocating against us. So that's one issue. The other issue is we need more people who are LGBTQ+ to run for office at all levels of office. Even if you don't have a kid in the school system, that doesn't mean you can't get on the school board in the town. That doesn't mean if you don't want to become a council member in your town, you can see if you can get on the Democratic committee or the Republican committee for that matter. I mean, if you really want to really play a game with stuff, so those are things that I think, are important things to do. And I know you guys can't really be involved in the political stuff on that because of the 501c3. I work with the Bergen County Democratic LGBTQ+ caucus, which is connected to the Democratic Party, but they still don't really respect us a lot. But more people that want to become involved in that and consider running for anything, because if you're on the board, if you're on a council, if you're on a committee, you can.
Dan, sorry, but can
I'll shut up.
can we move this away from purely party political? Because I mean, you're right. First, we're a 501c3 anyway. Second, I absolutely hear you, and I know you have events, and obviously a lot of people from here go. But what I'm trying to focus on really is what we as a group and as a community can do, particularly in the short term, to help this part of the community and actually get some real actions out of this. And I think Patrick's point is very well taken, that when we are aware of Board of Education meetings, that we should try and get people to go to those, and we should try and pull people together to do that. I think that's a concrete, actionable step that we can do, right? Also, ensuring that we can push out, because Anthony has developed an amazing presentation, right, which covers a lot of the issues you're talking about, and Valerie's talking about stigma and trying to move people away from stigma, and we're getting traction with that with the GSAs, and that covers transgender as a big part of that presentation. But also other sort of practical, concrete stuff, because obviously the kind of politics in the broader sense is a big issue. But are there other practical things that a community group like BCLA, which is focused on trying to kind of help and bring resources to the community, can help bring to this part of the community, which we all know is starved of resources, right? Probably as much more than any other bit of the community. Sydney, Patrick, Valerie, and I'm not sure whether Vicky is still with us. Any thoughts on that? And Sydney,
Well,
you know Bergen County very well, right? Too. You've lived here for
Yeah.
many years, even though you're not immediately here right now. But
Yeah, I lived there for 20 years. That's correct. It's hard to, I mean, what can immediately be done is difficult because this stuff has started back in 2017. This rhetoric, it's deep. I just sent the link to the group if anyone wants to read it about how the anti-trans think tank, how this all started. It's quite disturbing. It really is with SCGM. And this is where this is coming from. And dramatically doing it by state. No, they can't get New Jersey right now. They can't get New York and California. So they started off with the most conservative state. Tennessee is the 5th most conservative state in the country. And going from there, that's what they're doing. And the money thing is a point. And here there's been a lot of people going to Capitol Hill, protesting these bills. I'm sure people are seeing online and some of the things that the rhetoric is going on. There's been more people protesting against them than for them here. But, these people are being paid, the whole election campaign funded by, people like Family Research Council and, Heritage Foundation, all these conservative groups, and that's the problem. How do you fight that? And you right now we can't. I think right now we sprint damage control. We're going to focus on working with ACLU and getting, because most of these things can be struck down, especially the healthcare bills and drug bills. So it's, and there's more. I know of a few more bills are coming. They're quite scary. That in Tennessee, if everyone's heard them all, but not the only one.
student. And one of the other things we've been trying to do is at least start establishing some safe spaces for the transgender community, which is why we have the Marsha P. Johnson event. Are there other things we should be doing in that regard just to give the transgender community space to be itself? Any thoughts on that? Patrick, Valerie, I know Sydney's struggling a bit with audio.
I don't know, because I feel like I got kicked out of Bergen County a long time ago.
I mean, that, Valerie, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think particularly the kind of I understand the healthcare issues and whatever of, being able to actually access healthcare here are kind of instructive, and you'll need to end up in New York.
I mean, I can go over it all again.
I mean, just like a couple of minutes
Brief
for people.
synopsis is,
Yeah.
I was living in Bergen County for 30 something years. Maybe the last couple I had been on and off in Passaic County too, because just of where business and things ended me up. But I've kept a residence in Bergen County all my life. And as soon as I came out, I was allowed to be locked out of that, not get to see my kid. And essentially my businesses were torn asunder and I was told to go take a hike. I tried picking up as much as I possibly could, and I was ready for some assault. I don't know what would have happened if the world didn't literally shut down as I was opening my doors in 2020, but it did. And I know
You
that
should be able
those
to hear
doors
me
were in
now.
Essex County and not Bergen County. And so over the past couple of years, the only thing I had left over here was scrambling as much as I possibly could to afford the absurdities of my divorce while I tried to see my kid. And when the judge let my kid go to Michigan and steal my paycheck that I was using to eat because they didn't want to do the math in court, because they didn't want to hear me, because they literally just silenced me, because that's what the court can do, whether I had a lawyer or not. So frankly, I don't know what to do, because I don't know if there's anything to be done other than light the fire. I don't see any progress with these people being made, and I grew up in Bergen County. I'm pretty much a lifelong resident. And I have been through the school system where I didn't know anything, where kids were bullying me for reasons they didn't even know how to articulate, where I was getting, beat up on for reasons I didn't even know, because I like girls. Well, it's a girl that likes girl, fine, whatever. I get that now. But I was through all of the systems of this educational system. I was through all the forms of government, all the different layers and all the different people, and all I heard was, we don't want you here. You're the problem. If only you'd go away. And that's literally the animosity and the ingrained hatred that we deal with in discrimination. It's not that anybody thinks they're the villain here. And maybe some of the higher ranking, politicians feel a little bit of a way. Not that they'd ever admit it. No one in Bergen County thinks that they're anti-LGBT, even though the whole county is. None of these people in these school districts feel like they have done anything wrong, because that's the way the system's set up. No one felt like I was discriminated in my divorce, as I literally jumped up and down and screamed that you're, destroying my life, destroying the businesses and my relationships and with my daughter and everything. They just said, no, we get to do otherwise. So, that's why I'm a little, fired up, as it were. And I'm seeing opportunities in front of me where maybe, just maybe, I'll have some sort of way to fight back. Or at least help people by funding it myself. Because if you want to do the things, you want to help people, you want to have them housed, you want to have them fed, you want to have them get healthcare, you want to have them get anything. It is massive amounts of money, and I know you all know that. And I know we don't have it yet.
Yeah.
Yet we're in the richest friggin' zip code in the United States outside of the movie stars.
Valerie, as you were going through, first of all, thank you for sharing all that. And I'm thinking about, as you were going through, you talked about a lot of different challenges, right? That you went through at different ages in your life, at different stages in your life that involved school, involved personal life, healthcare system. So as you were facing those different kinds of challenges, can you think of some things that, had they been available to you, right? Things that weren't available to you, but had they been available to you, could have made things less difficult in your experience of those challenges? Or, you know, and I'm forgetting about the money and what's possible. You know, I'm just thinking in a concrete way for you personally, what might have been there for you that would have been a support?
A good question.
But I mean, I'm gonna ask this question here. I switched to my phone so it wouldn't cut out on audio. Valerie, I know you were talking about custody and things that happen. You know, what happened, I mean, we do have attorneys and we have to do that nature. Since we're in work to help in a situation like that, there's been an attorney that was, you know, from our community who came in.
I was making close to 10 grand a month and couldn't pay them enough to do anything.
I understand that, but someone within the community maybe want to do something like pro bono or something.
I called over 1,000 lawyers in this state. Every single one who came up on every search I possibly could that had LGBT attached and pro bono.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. I called the ACLU, almost got some traction there, except they wanted to deal with it in appeals because they didn't want to get concerned with the property settlement part of the divorce.
When was this?
And if you look throughout that kind of law specifically, there are no appeals because everybody settles because they know they don't have the $1 million to get any traction on the appeals.
When did this happen?
It's been happening since 2017, but I guess the court case ended October 21, started October of 2019. My own lawyer was dumbfounded in the end, like they're not doing anything that they could do. I mean, you ask about what they could have done. There are literally laws on the books that give family court in Bergen County extraordinary powers.
Oh yeah, I know.
To intervene in this situation.
Yeah.
But they don't.
Yeah, they do.
Because the pig that runs it was put there by a right-wing politician so that the Enron people could get divorced easily. Like it's not Enron, Goldman Sachs, but it's insane the way we have things and what we actually have to fight against.
Valerie, I don't disagree with anything you're saying at all. To Alan's point though, which I think is
I'm with you there. It is a great question.
Do
I
you or
don't
does
know.
Patrick
And
or
that
Sydney
I
have any
think is
thoughts
all
on
of our
that?
issue. We don't actually know.
I have a thing to offer, actually. Like
Yep.
I said, I belong to a trans support group, and one of they asked us, what do we want to see is, because we meet monthly, what do we want to see as topics? And I have a background in martial arts and self-defense. So I know the trans community, especially trans women, need to learn self-defense because people attack them more than trans men. So I suggested that. So like we're doing that actually, like a self-defense or safety training online, deals mostly with the emotional and mental parts of self-defense, because that's like 90% of self-defense. So because LGBTQ people get, attacked physically, I mean, that's one way of, helping create, like, I guess, safety. I don't know if it's a safe space, but at least them being able to defend themselves. And also, like, the thing about self-defense is that it does help, if you learn how to do things physically, it empowers you. You can, I'm not saying it's a guarantee that you're going to be like whatever, but the idea of self-defense is survival. So if someone has that knowledge, I think it helps with their confidence and standing up to bullies, so that's one way of,
I think that's a great suggestion, Patrick, actually, not just for the transgender part of the community, but probably for the whole community.
yeah, that could be you, yeah.
Is there a particular provider or whatever who you've had good experience of? And even particularly if you had a new business that was LGBT owned or ally owned or whatever, is there anything like that that you could share and we could even put on the website if we feel that it's credible enough to recommend to the community?
Yeah, like, again, I've done martial arts self-defense for like 30 years, and I've taught it also, but then I've always wanted to, like, have some kind of training that that did address the mental and emotional parts of, the psychological part of self-defense. And there's this company called, or program called, Prepare. It's based in New York City, and they actually, like, are LGBTQ friendly. They're the ones actually who are going to be doing the online training for the trans group that I belong to, and I can get in contact with them if you want.
Anything like that would be helpful, I think. Because
Yeah,
again, one of the things we try and do with the website is we have a section on LGBT owned and friendly businesses. And I think, Alan, if we could get some self-defense providers who are friendly, because I think a lot of people feel concerned about going into that environment,
Right.
because sometimes they're not so friendly, right?
Yeah.
If we know of people who are, I think that's a great suggestion, because as you say, transgender women are so badly affected by violence. I'm not encouraging everybody to wander around with a gun. I mean, it's
Oh yeah,
quite
no. And again, like I said, like, it's not necessarily like physical, like self-defense. Like I said, 90% of self-defense and safety is psychological. It's emotional and mental, protecting yourself, like having boundaries and things like that. So it's not about carrying around a gun. I mean, you could if you want, if you did feel safer, but know how to handle a weapon because it could be turned against you, kind of thing. But again, the other side of self-defense is the psychological part.
In response to Valerie having been through such adversity and kind of expressing a sense just now of not being sure what could have helped, right? Which I think is very reasonable when it's hard to, when do you have the time to sit down and think what you need when you're, struggling constantly? And so what I'm thinking about is is there anything BCLA could do to help bring members of the trans community together to a safe space to take some time to think about, what are some practical, concrete things that could be done? Maybe the practical thing to do is to make that space for that conversation to happen so that we could come out of that with some actionable items that are things that we can do.
we can
The other thing
certainly make
did
as part of
everything.
the Marsha P. Johnson social group, social get together, the monthly get together for the transgender community. You know, we can certainly have one session of that, which is like a led conversation on that issue where people from the transgender community are there leading that conversation to figure out exactly that question, right? Or the answer to that question. You know, or it could be done at another venue. I mean, I'm not, but I'm
Yeah,
just saying that
it's not even
exists
the
as a
answer,
vehicle
right?
already.
And I'm thinking, not necessarily the answer, because some of these issues, as people are expressing tonight, are so big and so complicated, but to start that conversation happening where we can find, somehow narrow down where are the areas where we have some power, right, to affect some change, and where we could be effective, just to start to narrow that down in some way. And we can only do that with people in the community who are the ones who live it and know the experience and can say, yeah, these are the points that are most difficult and
I wouldn't
where
mind
things
doing
would
that.
change.
But also, I mean, it comes down almost always to funding, the time it takes to put a program together, the time that people need to be able to do a program. And then I know most of the transgender community in Bergen County, and they don't want another program. They don't want another meeting to sit through. They've, especially if they're my age, they've been forced into that their whole life. That was part of the abuse. And I like where you're going. Like, sometimes we probably do need to sit down and do it. But honestly, like, it's not our community that's going to do that. We need to call every lawyer in the state and get a coalition together and say, yeah, Bergen County LGBT Alliance is, supporting, your efforts, but go as every lawyer in the state and say, we're going to flood, the courts with certain kinds of things. We're going to, start flooding the legislation with legal problems. Like, we need some sort of traction in very significant ways. Because I did call every lawyer in the state. I did, do as much as I possibly could, to the extent that I literally didn't sleep for weeks on end. When I was trying to prevent what was going on with me, I fought the entire time. And I remembered that battle as a kid, and I gave up. Literally just flat out decided, I'm playing video games the rest of my life and I don't care. Because winning that fight, I don't see any way. Not individually, not as just the trans community, not even just as the LGBTQIA+ community. We need a united Bergen County people to literally go and what is that? Is that like, and I know you're all are limited. I don't think you can go, door to door and take names and donations, or can we? Like, where are we actually limited, and what are we actually able to do?
Valerie, this is a huge topic, right? And
Right,
I
I
think
know, and I'm kind of, taking over here. I'm just at a point where what do we do?
look, we all hear this, and we all hear the frustration and anger, and hear the pain that you've been through, right? And we're not, in reality, a meeting of this sort and action points coming out of it are not going to solve the huge problems that you're talking about, which I think everybody sees. That, for example, the court system is rigged against people who've been through your situation, for example, right? But I think Alan's suggestion is a good one in the sense that clearly there needs to be an ongoing discussion about this to find some more concrete things that BCLA can try and help to start making some marginal improvement. One thing we haven't touched on at all tonight is healthcare, which I think we all know is also woefully problematic for the transgender part of the community, right? And yes, there's progress, but we need to push that progress further with some of the hospitals in Bergen County who we know are not sufficiently accepting and are making hurdles, or they're certainly not helping clear those hurdles away. That's another example, right? And I'm conscious
Do we
that we're
have a
kind of
list of
the-
and what we need to do? Because
well, but that's what we're saying, right? That we should, as some sort of guided or discussion following on from this, maybe through Marsha P. Johnson, which is a regular standing event. Everybody knows where it is and when it is. Have some real meaningful discussions continuing on from this, where we are saying, look, let's actually get some concrete actions, which might include that we make visits to these people at these particular hospitals, which would include, things like Patrick's very helpful suggestion on self-defense stuff and getting people access to that. And we know housing is an issue, and we know there's a whole bunch of different issues here, right? And this discussion is really to try and get some of those issues out there and to try and begin to find some ways to process those issues. But I think some sort of maybe longer discussion with people on here who are, concerned about this as allies, together with the transgender community, might be a good next step.
I think the allies issue is also something that can be helpful. I mean, like I'm in a lot of different groups, and one of them is a coalition called Thrive New Jersey, and they've been watchdogging a lot of the reproductive health bills. And the latest thing, there was a bill S375, and it's about the reproductive website. That coalition fought very strongly for a change in the language in the bill to make it more inclusive. Where I take it wasn't when the bill initially started through. So I think that some coalitions that maybe not specifically LGBTQ plus are kind of trying to do some things that we could work with. So
Right.
it may be looking beyond, being more intersectional maybe might be helpful. That's all.
Yeah, and I think we also need to try and get as much that we can do practically within the county, right? I totally agree that, where you've got bills coming up in New Jersey, we should be following those. I mean, supposedly Garden State Equality is the focus for all of that stuff. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be involved at all, but I am saying that, we need, I think, to be thinking, what are the practical things within an organization like ours, which, as Valerie says, has limited funding right now, that we can do to practically help people? That's where I'd like us, if we can, to kind of focus a little bit. And so, conversations with hospitals who are claiming to be transgender friendly in Bergen County, let's actually talk to them and make sure we're holding them to account and trying to get them to improve. Local boards of education, local GSAs, let's actually try and push out some of that training that we're already developing. That kind of thing I'm thinking about, really, because that is stuff we can actually do, and we can do, within this year.
Yeah, I also suggest, I'm sorry, working with the county, the county legislation is always a good idea. School systems, be there for the school meetings and things, especially when you have opposition, like Moms Liberty, they're everywhere. They've infiltrated Florida. A lot of places, they haven't been here so much, but they have been a lot of places. And I've part of a few of them trying to get to some of the southern New Jersey areas, so that is happening. That's something to keep in mind. But the allies is a very good thing. Have as many allies as possible. You know, you try to get some Republican ones too. I mean, I know it was, you know, Bergen County Republicans, and there are Republicans that are for us, believe it or not. There are. You know, don't make it a, you know, Republicans versus Democrats thing. Make it a, you know, health, life, enrichment. You know, what these representatives are supposed to represent the people, not their own agenda. That's the problem. And reminding them of that goes a long way. You know, in a respectful way, of course, but especially ones that, you know, we won't. And there's some that are not respectful, obviously, but I think, you know, trying to start off with that goes a long way.
Yeah, I agree with that, Sydney. We have reached out to a number of Republicans on these topics, and I've got to say, not so far with a lot of response, but we will keep trying, because I agree with you. We need to do that and hold people accountable generally for practical stuff as much as anything. So look, thank you everybody for this discussion. I think it's valuable. I think it needs to be the start of something, not trying to be the end of something. And, you know, we will continue this dialogue in 2 weeks. And also, I think Alan's suggestion, we should try and make that happen as soon as we can. And Anthony and I will figure that out together with Alan and other board members and make sure that is as representative for the transgender community as we can. I think that's a great suggestion. Just quickly, because I know we've gone over time. Sorry, Sydney, do you want to say something?
There's one thing I want to say. You know, I transitioned in 2013, and at that time, you know, transgender wasn't even in the news. And the first time I ever heard it even being spoken on national TV is when Obama mentioned it in 2014 for State of the Union address that summer. And, you know, I've seen it from, you know, where it was a kind of quiet to it's exploded. And I saw, from my perspective, I've seen a lot of progress that was made from 2015 to about 2017. Tremendous progress, like warp speed progress. And that's when all these anti-groups started. They saw this. And yeah, there's a medical research and medical things coming up and coverage being, you know, it's a panic because, you know, it's kind of like someone being left-handed. You know, I'm sure most of you have heard that, you know, the rise of left-handed people, and they're seeing this rise of transgender people, and they're like, oh, they're indoctrinating. Some believe this. It's not, they're not making up that you believe it, but they're not realizing that it's just ignorance. So my point is that there's a lot of, it's a pendulum, and there's a lot of pushback right now, a ton of it. And try not to get discouraged too much. I know it's hard to say right now, but you know, these bills are being passed, but we still have courts, and these things that get, you know, there's been many laws that have been, you know, there has not been a transgender healthcare ban against minors that's held up in court yet. So there's only been 2 of them. They both got struck down, one in Arkansas, one in Texas. Now they're trying to go around it. But we'll see. You know, we're going to see what happens here, and you know, with the courts, and I know they're ready. So keep that in mind. And a lot of these people, especially in Bergen County, they're kind of doing this wait and see attitude too. You know, they don't want to rock the boat one way or the other. They're going to say, well, let's see what happens with down there at a federal level and with this sort of court. I'm not going to make it one way or the other, so kind of keep that in mind. So don't give up yet.
Sydney, I'm grateful for at least you trying to find some positive. Thank you for that.
You have to. You have to.
And good luck down there, because obviously the atmosphere down there is not great right now.
I just remember, sometimes it's okay to take a break from social media because it can get overwhelming sometimes. It happened to me last week. It was just so much one day. Last Saturday, I didn't touch social media one day. No Facebook, no TikTok, no nothing. You know, I called my mother, and we don't talk politics, but she's a conservative. But yeah, it was just not gonna do it. watch the movie,
Right.
something non-related, because you gotta get a mental break from it all. Otherwise, it's too much.
Okay, well, thank you for this discussion. I think it's helpful and we will absolutely continue it. Alan,
Yeah.
Wanda, did you have anything very quickly that you wanted to say coming out of the LGBT Advisory Committee that I know you were both on earlier this evening? Is there any update from that, apart from Alan saying we should meet with superintendent?
I found that it was positive, and we found some resources. We will be reaching out. Some of you on this meeting will find out about the HIB that they talked about, the bullying campaign that's at the school. They're going to actually, we have some names we're going to call tomorrow, reach out to them, to reach out to our community on the points that we've discussed, Elena, especially some things we talked about today. Very positive news. So I'm excited. We're probably going to have some speakers come out from the county. They're thinking about it. They had some good ideas. So I hope that they
We're
will
also
follow up.
going to meet with the prosecutor's office, Bergen County Prosecutor's Office, to discuss how to handle bias incident reporting, and to figure out how to consolidate the resources around that. So it wasn't just the superintendent of education. We're also coordinating a meeting with the county prosecutor.
Will you guys do a note of the meeting and then we can circulate that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I'm conscious we're over time. I don't want to go through everything on the agenda. One thing I do want to mention is that, as I think everybody knows now, we have office hours 3 times a week at Central Unitarian Church in Paramus on Forest Avenue. We are there between 10 and 6 and 3 times a week. That's for people to go there, to call in, and we now have some resource to help with outreach, particularly for the senior community, but generally. So if anybody knows of people who are in need of help, post-surgery, anything of that sort within the community, please let us know, because we have some resource for that now. Also, every Monday, if people could, we've got information on the website, but if people could also spread this around, we have now STI, HIV and STI testing, and also access to PrEP through another not-for-profit that we have building a relationship with. So if anybody knows people who want to access that service, it is available and can be accessed through the office on a Monday, or through calling into our helpline number. We can then put that in train for people. It's on a no cost or low cost basis. They provide it as cheaply as they possibly can. And so far that's working very smoothly. Any other business, anything else anybody wanted to just quickly mention? If not, thank you so much. Elena, could I just give a shout out to you, because I saw you join, but joined us late. Those people who don't know, Elena and her wife run Cozy Cafe in Fairlawn, and also a salon next door. We are trying to support them as a lesbian-owned business. We run a number of groups there, including the women's group, one of our senior groups, and they've been great in accommodating us and helping us to use their space for our events. So thank you, Elena. And a shout out to you and anybody who's in Fairlawn, please go to the cafe. It's great. It is really a cozy place to hang out for our community and very welcoming. So thank you for joining and thank you for what you do.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Love you.
Thank you, everybody, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Well, the manner will be better next time.
Good night.
Good night.